Welcome back, Geico Outkick Studios. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us as we roll through the final hour of the program here on what I think is going to be a really, really entertaining weekend going into Saturday and Sunday, but also with the NBA playing later tonight. Theoretically, we could have a situation where the NBA is officially done and LeBron James has won his fourth title in the bubble experiment officially comes to a close and would be successful in that it would end without any major issues at all from a health perspective. We bring in now Chris Mannix at SI. Chris Mannix, our NBA insider, for what might be the final visit of this NBA season, which, by the way, seems like, I'm sure to you and many other people out there, it has never ended because it's literally going to basically go over almost a year, right, before all is said and done from when this situation started. So let's begin there. Do you think the Lakers close it out tonight in Game 5?
I do. Miami has been, they've done everything they can. They've played up to, I think, their potential with this group, but they're outgunned in a series like this, especially with Goran Dragic still on the outside looking in. I'm not expecting him to play in this game. Game 5. So I think the Lakers close it out. I mean, they're just the only game they lost was because they played probably the worst game of their entire postseason. And even in that situation, they were still in it in the fourth quarter. So I think the Lakers are just a superior team, and I think they close it out.
All right. So what is the lasting impact of this win for LeBron? Let's presume that he's not going to give up this 3-1 lead to the Miami Heat, that the Lakers are going to win the title. He and Anthony Davis, obviously the two stars of the Lakers. What does this mean going forward for him and for the Lakers?
I mean, for LeBron, I think this is the second or third most significant accomplishment of his career, frankly. I mean, I think first will always be what happened in Cleveland, returning to that city, winning a championship, coming back from 3-1 down against a 72-win team. I mean, that there really isn't anything that will ever top that in LeBron's career. But this one's right up there, right behind it. I'd put it on par with that Game 6 that he played in the 2012 conference finals when he was with Miami. If you remember that series, they were down 3-2, and that was before they had won a championship with Miami. Boston was up. That was really that was kind of the moment for LeBron to prove he was a winner, and he had this unbelievable game on the Garden floor in Boston. This, winning this championship, I think is, kind of on that level with what he did in that series. So I think for LeBron, it's everything, and it inches him a little bit closer to Jordan. I think for the Lakers, they've kind of established a blueprint here. Like, they have a group that not only can win a championship, but dominate on its way to winning a championship. They are poised to basically gentlemen sweep every team in the playoffs. And you can certainly say that they haven't had the toughest of paths, but, in the NBA, you play the team that's in front of you. It's not boxing or MMA. It's not their fault that the Clippers tanked in the conference semis. It's not their fault Milwaukee, didn't show up in their conference semis. I mean, they played everyone put in front of them, and they dominated. And I think for the Lakers, with this group, you've got the potential to have a championship window that extends to maybe 3 years.
Yeah, so you think LeBron can still have that 2 or 3 year window after this one?
There's no reason to think otherwise. I mean, he's 35, and we keep waiting for that dip, but he's coming off one of the best seasons statistically of his career, where he played two-way basketball for the first time since his Miami days. So I think having Anthony Davis back, and I would expect him to sign a long-term deal very quickly once free agency starts, whenever it starts in the NBA. That's just a guy that is, progressively going to be able to take more and more pressure off of LeBron offensively. Defensively, he's arguably the top player in the NBA. He really does have the perfect kind of, running buddy, the perfect partner in all this in Anthony Davis, who has a great relationship with LeBron. That's become abundantly clear all season, and it has the talent to take over when LeBron can't.
All right, we're talking to Chris Mannix, our NBA insider at SI. Chris Mannix. The number of people that are watching the NBA Finals has never been lower. Before we get into why that might be, do you think that has surprised Adam Silver, top NBA executives and the TV networks the lack of interest that has existed for the NBA Finals relative to most years historically?
Yeah, I think it surprised them. I think they believed, or at least had the hope, that when the finals came along, you'd see traditional ratings. So it's been disappointing as far as what you attribute it to. I mean, look, I understand the political angle to it all, but I think far more significant is the fact that they're used to going up against nothing, and now they're not only competing when it comes to actual airtime, but competing for kind of media oxygen. In June, the NBA is all really people are talking about. They're not talking much about regular season baseball. Football is not even in training camp. I mean, it's all NBA all the time in June. Now, it's far more NFL, far more college football, and you lump all the other stuff into the mix that goes along with it, with NHL and some of the specialty events like golf and horse racing. It consumes a lot of oxygen, and I think this is a lot of variables. And I think, look, the Heat being in this probably hurts them a little bit too. I think the Celtics probably would have done a bigger rating because of that historical rivalry, but I don't know that it's any one thing. I think it's a confluence of events that have created this sort of ratings abyss.
It's a good phrase, actually, the ratings abyss of the NBA Finals. And I would say this, they have managed to avoid, through scheduling, most NFL or college football direct competition, right? They opened on a Tuesday, no football. They played on a Friday for Game 2. I know they had, I think the Cardinals-Padres baseball was a competition, but in general, that's not a brutal, competitive environment. Right. Then they played on a Tuesday. They played the Sunday head-to-head with the NFL, which was tough. Then they got Tuesday. Now they're going to play again tonight. So 4 of the 5 games, if it ends in 5 games, have not had to go head-to-head with football, and they've still seen dismal results, which I thought was interesting. Adam Silver, even before the finals were over, said, I don't think we're going to put messages on the jerseys next year. I don't think we're going to have anything written on the court. Do you think that will prove to be true, and did it surprise you that Adam Silver said it now?
No, and I did a story with Adam back in July, and that was my sense coming out of that story too, that this was a unique set of circumstances where the NBA was trying to come back at a time in the country where it was, as in the aftermath of the George Floyd killing, the Breonna Taylor stuff, like this was as racially charged an environment as you could possibly have, at least in recent memory. I never viewed this as being something the NBA was going to adopt permanently. Like they, to do that, you'd have to get, all the teams in the league on board with it. And that wasn't going to happen because, frankly, owners have different views and they're well within their rights to have different views. If they want to support Donald Trump, great. If they want to, support the Republican Party, that's their choice. It's a free country. And, if you're not going to have a uniformity to it, it doesn't make any sense to try to push it. So I think the NBA all along thought this was, kind of something they had to do because of the viewpoint of the players, but never was this going to be something that became part of the fabric of what the league does.
So I'm fascinated by this because we saw a major battle erupt in Major League Baseball over how they were going to play the season. And I'm sure you followed it to some extent, even as an NBA insider. It was like, it was up, it was down, it was yes, it was no. I mean, it was a public battle that played out between the players union and the owners over how many games they're going to play. And to Major League Baseball's credit, eventually they got it worked out. They're in the postseason. They're going to have a World Series champ. They're not going to miss the season, which is what the worst case scenario was. And the NFL had their own little kind of battle over testing and what exactly the protocols were going to be going in, what were players going to make, how are they going to slot salary caps going forward, all those different things. And they got that worked out. How big of a battle are we setting up for in the NBA for looking ahead the return, which you've been on top of, and you told us months ago, I think, hey, I think around MLK Day is, maybe when the NBA is going to come back. How much of a battle is this going to be over? Presumably, they're not going to have full arenas where they're going to play, and the players are not going to get the full contracted for value of their salaries because it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to play an 82-game season. Like, what do you expect for next season in the NBA to look like, and how big of a battle is it going to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think Adam Silver phrased it properly when he said difficult conversations that have to be had with the union about just how big a financial hit the league's going to take with, the likelihood of limited or no revenue in arenas to start next season, how many games are in a season and what percentage that takes right off the top. The reason I'm optimistic is largely because of my understanding of the relationship, not just with Adam Silver and Michelle Roberts, but Adam Silver and Chris Paul, Adam Silver and LeBron James. What Silver has done in his tenure as commissioner has really forged a strong working relationship with leaders within the NBA so that when they sit across the room from him, they don't really think he's trying to screw them. Now, Adam Silver works for the owner, so he's trying to get them as much money as possible. But players, and I've talked to players about this, they just don't see Adam as an adversary. They see him more as a partner in all this. And I don't think that was always true. I mean, I covered, a handful of lockouts, work stoppages when it was David Stern versus Billy Hunter in the NBA. I mean, David was a very successful commissioner, but there were a lot of players that, looked at David as an opponent in those kind of negotiations there. I don't think they view it the same way with Adam Silver. So, look, there can always be one issue that trips the whole thing up, whether it's how many games you play or, what percentage of the revenue you're going to cut from players. Something can always come up. But because this relationship is so strong with the commissioner and the players in the union, I just get the sense it's all going to be figured out. I don't think it'll be seamless, but I think it'll get figured out in a much cleaner way than what baseball did, which was, basically a pie fight, for every day that was going on.
Last question for you, Chris Mannix at SI Chris Mannix, our NBA insider. Presume that the Lakers win the title this year. I think that's very likely, again, unless they lose 3 games in a row, which would be very, very highly unpredictable. Who should be the favorite for next season in your mind?
I mean, the Lakers deserve the right to be called the favorite, especially if they bring the whole band back together to do it again. But I can't stop watching Golden State and what Bob Myers and that front office could potentially do with that number 2 overall pick. I had Ryan McDonough, the former Suns GM, on my podcast this weekend. We were talking about that pick and, just how many teams are kind of probing. And one place to look strongly at is Washington. I mean, the Wizards are in kind of a weird position right now. They've got John Wall coming back. They might re-sign Davis Bertans as a good player, but they've got Bradley Beal, and everybody wants Bradley Beal. And if you're the Wizards and you get an offer of the number 2 pick in the draft, Andrew Wiggins, who is the salary filler there, and Minnesota's top 3 protected pick next year, which Golden State has from a previous deal, and they could dangle in that trade. That's really hard to turn down. So it's a long way of saying if the Warriors pull the trigger on a deal that nets them a player like Bradley Beal, I mean, they're right back to where they were. I mean, Bradley Beal isn't Kevin Durant, but he gives them another, death lineup type of player who, coupled with Draymond and Steph and Klay Thompson coming back, I mean, they're going to be a tough team to bet against next year if that kind of deal gets done.
Outstanding stuff, as always. Chris Mannix at SI Chris Mannix. We will talk with you again in the future, but probably not about the bubble ever again, which I would imagine you would appreciate. Thanks, man.
Very
Have a good weekend.
Here,
yeah, enjoy the games this weekend. That is Chris Mannix. When we come back, we have got an incredible collection of gambling picks for you for the NFL. It's our Outkick 6-pack, which has been smoking hot since we debuted it in week 2 of the season. We're going to continue with that.